All right, as we get going here in the third period, tied up 1-1. Flanagan's out on defense here for Beltire with Hewer, Palucci, and Agbe. Flanagan's moving it up the boards. That's going to go the length of the ice here for an icing. .43 on the clock. As we get going, we're going to have Palucci on the draw. Puck is down. Palucci tied up at the dot. That puck just rolling around. Picked up by Flanagan. Now picked up by Toronto on the half wall. Toronto walking through into the slot. Shot is going to be blocked. Sent aside. Off the half wall goes Palucci. Toronto with possession now. Toronto walking in. Palucci defending. Palucci going hard into the end boards. Caitlin Flanagan trying to pick it free. Comes out with it. Sends it up the wall. Looking for Hewer. Hewer sending it center. Looking for Agbe. And Martin stepping in on D here. Dobbs in on offense. Toronto gains his own. Pressured by Martin. Sent across. Looking for the pass. Drop pass is missed. Goes out to neutral. 13:56 on the clock. Toronto's circling. Toronto gaining his own. Defended by Flanagan. Flanagan down into the corner. Dobbs stepping in to cut off the angle. And that puck's going to come free with Martin defending. Wrap around the tent defended by Martin is blocked by Grund. As we get going, this is going to be Dobbs taking that draw. Toronto sending it up down deep behind the Beltire net. Picked up by Clemens. Clemens now trying to break free. Clemens shifting it ahead for Kazarowski. Kazarowski and Clemens up against the Toronto boards. Toronto now sending it out through center ice. Defended here by Bowman. And behind the net goes Bowman and Palucci. Palucci comes out with the puck. Shifting it ahead to Kazarowski. Kazarowski off the wall. Looking for a centering pass for Clemens. Couldn't quite make it. Intercepted by Toronto. Toronto in neutral. Picked up by Martin. Martin going up the boards. Finding Kazarowski. Kazarowski sending it ahead. Now, Palucci. Palucci with a little bit of room. Evans lining in. Evans! And Evans is going to just miss the net on the pad pass from Palucci. This is going to be defended by King. King behind the Beltire net. Going hard into the boards. No call with a high elbow up top. Toronto sliding it down the half wall. Defended by King. Martin now on the D. Martin gets a stick on it. Shifts that out to neutral. Sent ahead. Picked up now by Evans. Evans with a little bit of room. Evans sending it in. Off a Toronto player. Martin goes for a change. Caitlin Flanagan stepped in. Flanagan with the puck. Sending it back down deep into the Toronto zone. Offsides. Delayed offsides. Dobbs got to come out. Hewer's got to come out. And they make their way out as Toronto comes up through neutral. Toronto sending it down deep where it's going to be picked up by McKenzie in the corner. 11:45 on the clock. Sent ahead. Intercepted by Toronto momentarily. And Toronto comes free with the puck. Sliding across. Shot in. Blocked by Hewer. Hewer off the boards. Collected by Toronto. Hewer coming across center. Cleared out by, looks like Mackenzie Flanagan. Through neutral goes Toronto. Agbe stepping in for Beltire. Out with Dobbs and Hewer. Sent ahead. Agbe on the wall. Dobbs helping. Dobbs poking it free. And Toronto gains possession now. Agbe gets a stick on it. Agbe now with a little bit of a line. Agbe's shot gets deflected up into the netting to freeze play. All right, 10:56 on the clock. On ice is going to be Palucci, Kazarowski, Clemens, Martin, Mackenzie Flanagan. And that puck's going to get sent deep by Toronto for an icing with 10:49 on the clock. We're going to do this again on the face-off here in the Toronto zone. Good. Dobbs on the draw. Puck is down. Toronto trying this breakout pass. Couldn't quite get it. That puck laying free. Agbe just being a nuisance back there. We got Agbe, Hewer, Dobbs out with Flanagan and Martin. 10:43 on the clock. Tied up 1-1. Third period. Juggernaut hockey here. Tied up at the dot. Toronto comes up with the puck. Sending it ahead. Martin to defend. Martin pushing wide. Gets her stick on it. Pushes that puck wide of the net. At the half wall. Picked up by Agbe. Agbe kicking it forward. Comes clear. Gets out of the zone into neutral. Agbe still with it at her feet. And Toronto comes up with the puck. Toronto walking in. Defending here is Martin. Shot by Toronto goes wide of the net. Palucci loses her stick again. Third time this game her stick has gone flying. Sent ahead by Flanagan. Tipped and no icing going to be called here as Beltire goes for a line change. Bowman and Caitlin step out with Kazarowski, Palucci, and Clemens. Picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan gains the zone. Sending it across, looking for Palucci. Intercepted by Toronto. And cleared. That's going to go the length of the ice here for an icing. 9:39 on the clock. We'll do a face-off here in the Toronto zone. And Palucci on the draw here. Clemens out with Kazarowski, Bowman, Caitlin Flanagan. That puck stopped by Caitlin on a hand pass, unfortunately. So we'll have a draw just outside of the Beltire zone. Dobbs to take it. Evans out there for Beltire with Cruciano and Flanagan. From Caitlin Flanagan and Bowman. Now we've got Evans with some room here. Evans going up against the boards. Chipped down by Toronto. Held in by Dobbs. Sent across, finding Cruciano. Off the wall goes Toronto. It's going to get sent down into the zone. Picked up by Martin. Martin sending it around, finding Cruciano on the wall. Goes past her stick, picked up by Toronto. This is going to be defended by Martin. Martin coming out with the puck. Sending it ahead off the boards. That gets chipped down by Toronto and makes its way out to neutral. Picked up by Palucci. Palucci going across, hitting Hewer. Picked up by Toronto. Toronto shifting it ahead. Going to go the length, no icing. Picked up by King. King sending it ahead off the boards. Trying to get Hewer. And Agbe and Hewer battling here. Picked up by Martin. Martin off the boards. Shipped ahead by Palucci. Now Agbe coming free with it. And Toronto regains possession. Toronto kicking it ahead. Chipped into the Beltire zone. This is going to be chased down by Martin. Martin behind her own net. Goes the other way. Looking for Agbe on the half wall. Sent ahead by Palucci. Stays in the zone. Shot in. Loved by Grund to freeze play with 7:55 on the clock. All right, as we get going again, Flanagan's on D. Clemens out there with Dobbs and Kazarowski. Caitlin over to McKenzie, looking for a stretch pass to Kazarowski. Kazarowski tied up by Toronto at the blue line. Sent ahead by Toronto, picked up by Caitlin. Caitlin chipping it into neutral. Collected by Toronto, sending it ahead. This will be grabbed by McKenzie. 7:30 on the clock. Wide pass looking for Dobbs, misses her stick. Toronto sends it back into the Bell Tire zone. McKenzie now sending it back around. Hewer on the change, lifts the stick, gets that puck clear of the zone, goes out to neutral and picked up by Toronto. Toronto sending it back in behind the Bell Tire net. Now down into the corner. Hewer at the half wall. 7 minutes on the clock. Toronto dropping it, sending it in on wide of the net. Now Caitlin sending it around, finding McKenzie. McKenzie going up ice, looking for Hewer. Hewer tips it to Palucci. Palucci trying to go to Agbe. Toronto stepping in, defended by Martin. Off her stick, goes wide of the net. Evans going ahead, picked up by Toronto at the point. Down into the corner, defended by Martin. Martin able to shift that puck ahead. And now Martin coming free with it. Martin now. Martin by herself. 1-on-2 is Martin. Martin going ahead. Martin behind net. Martin trying to chip it ahead. Gets deflected by Toronto as they send it down the length of the ice. We're going to have an icing. As a restart here, Dobbs out with Clemens, Kazarowski, McKenzie, and Martin. Puck is at the dot. Bell Tire looking to put one in here. Clemens behind the net. And Toronto with the puck now, coming up ice. Shifting it ahead. This is going to be chased down by Martin. Martin up against the boards. And Toronto in the half wall, sending it center ice. Deflected by Dobbs. Shot goes over top of the net. Picked up by Clemens on the half wall. Dobbs stepping in to help. At the half wall. This is defended by Martin. Goes to the wall. Picked up by Hewer. Hewer going back the other way. Comes free. Picked up by Palucci. Palucci with a little bit of room here. And intercepted by Toronto. Sent back in by Bowman. Now Hewer looking to try and center for Palucci. Bowman on D here, out with McKenzie, Agbe, Palucci, and Hewer. Flanagan going stretch pass up to Hewer. It's going to miss the mark. Roll for an icing. 4:49 on the clock. One to one in the third period, 4 minutes and 49 seconds. All right, as we get going again here, Toronto's going to try and send it in. That's going to go to the Bell Tire corner. Gets sent around. Behind the net is Bowman. Now Caitlin. This is going to be picked up by Agbe off the wall and then get chipped out into neutral. Toronto at center ice. Palucci in here. Clemens stepping in. Toronto's shot goes over top of the net. Picked up by Agbe on the half wall. She dumps it out, looking for Palucci. And Caitlin Flanagan's going to send it up the boards, looking for Agbe. Intercepted by Toronto, finally cleared by Palucci. 4:08 on the clock. Toronto sending it ahead. Picking it up. Dobbs off the bench, disrupting the play. Clemens stepping in to pick up the loose puck, sending it ahead for Kazarowski. Toronto through neutral. Off the skate, into the Bell Tire zone, defended by Bowman. Drop pass by Toronto. Tipped ahead. Martin gets a stick on it and gets it almost out then. That's going to come out and be offsides. All right, on the draw, 3:37 on the clock. Hewer, Agbe, Dobbs, Martin, King. Puck is down. Dobbs trying to hold it. Toronto comes free with it. Sends it down deep into the Bell Tire zone as it rolls to the opposite corner. Up the wall, they try and go. This is blocked by Dobbs. Dobbs up against the boards. This is going to be picked up by Martin on a stick lift. Up to Hewer. Hewer going into the zone, trying to get a shot off. That's going to go deep into the zone. Picked up by Agbe. Oh, just over Agbe, over skates. And it gets picked up by Toronto as they go rink wide. They're going to go center, trying to find the slot. Blocked by King as she goes down to a knee for the block. Chipped ahead, and that's going to make its way all the way down into the Toronto zone for an icing. .246 on the clock. Flanagan stepping in and out with McKenzie, Kazarowski, Palucci, Clemens. We're going to have a draw taken by Palucci. Sent wide of the net, picked up by McKenzie. McKenzie walking up ice, finding Clemens off her stick, goes to neutral. Toronto with possession in neutral. Toronto chipping it ahead. Caitlin Flanagan defending here, picked up, shot in, is going to sit right in front of the crease. Go behind the net, and Kazarowski's just going to chip it out of the rink to freeze play with 2:19. As Bell Tire goes for a line change with Hewer, Agbe, and Dobbs stepping in. So Dobbs on the draw. Dobbs ties up at the dot. Toronto comes up with the puck, drops it to their point. Shot in, hits a stick, goes wide. Hewer is going to send it up the boards. That's going to probably roll the line. It's not going to make it, so that's no icing. Toronto grabs it in their own zone. Missed pass by Toronto. Agbe takes advantage, sends it back into their zone. Martin back out on ice with Mackenzie Flanagan. McKenzie on defense here. Now Dobbs. Now Martin. Martin gets a stop. Picked up by Dobbs. Dobbs shifting it ahead. That's going to be on net. There's no icing. Played by the Toronto goalie. 1:39 on the clock. Kazarowski stopping play here right at the point. Palucci trying to step in. Toronto comes up with the puck as they move up through neutral. It's going to get sent down into the zone. Martin working it the other way. And Toronto circling the Bell Tire net. Coming across, dropping it up to their point. Clemens coming down. That pass missed its part and goes the length of the ice here with 1:09 on the clock. Clemens and Kazarowski on the hunt here in the Toronto zone. Palucci. 1 minute to go here. Picked up by Clemens. Clemens tripped on the play. No call. There have been 0 calls during this entire game. And Toronto comes free up through neutral. It's going to be defended by Caitlin. And down into the corner it goes. Now picked up by Palucci behind her own net. Palucci rolling it up to Hewer. Hewer trying to chip it out. Now picked up by Martin. Martin going off the back wall, sending it around. Toronto sending it through, and that play disrupted by Dobbs. Blocked by Martin. And Dobbs is going to send it out of the zone. 12 seconds remaining here. Sent down deep into the Bell Tire zone. Picked up by Flanagan, 6 seconds. They chip it up the half wall. It's going to be collected and blocked by Dobbs. And that is going to be time expiring. I'm not sure what the plan is with a tie. Looks like we're going to have a overtime here. 3-on-3. We've got some extra time, what we like to call free hockey. As we start the free hockey period, there'll be 3 minutes on the clock. Coach Mike giving a pep talk here for the girls. Well, as we get back underway, we are going to have Agbe out with Martin Flanagan. And that puck comes free. Toronto, Martin in a foot race. Picked up at the half wall. With possession, drops back to Flanagan. Flanagan going back to Martin. Martin on the wall. Martin coming out. Picked up, actually covered up by Grund. Agbe on the draw here. 2:44 on the clock. Picked up by Martin. Martin now with the puck. Martin moving it across to Flanagan. Flanagan now. Flanagan up ice. Tipping it ahead. Disrupted by Toronto. Martin stepping in. Martin going hard into the corner. Freezing that play. We're going to have a line change for Valtire. Palucci, Caitlin, Flanagan, and Hewer. Puck is down. Hewer on the draw. Toronto with possession. 2:20 on the clock. Toronto coming up ice. Flanagan taken down to the ice. Spinning around in the corner. Picked up by Toronto. Toronto coming out. Centering pass. Kick to the corner. Palucci lost her stick in the play. Sent around. Now Palucci in a great spot to collect the puck. Sending it back behind the net. And now picked up by Flanagan. Flanagan tipping it ahead for Hewer. Intercepted almost by Toronto. Hewer gets a stick on it. Hewer stepping in. Hewer looking for a centering pass by Palucci. Palucci sending it over to Flanagan. Flanagan in. Flanagan shot. Goes wide of the net. Picked up by Agbe. Agbe now. Agbe dropping to Martin. Martin walking to center. Martin trying to get that puck free. Toronto with possession. Martin chasing. Agbe. Agbe gets her stick on it. Jumping back into the play. Toronto behind their own net. Circling. Toronto shifting it ahead. 58 seconds. Stepped in by Agbe. Agbe with possession. Agbe going across, looking for Martin. Martin now. Martin going up ice. Martin's got to find her wheels here. Martin sending it in, going above the net. Stepped in is Dobbs. Dobbs sending it ahead. Chased by Toronto. Toronto now in neutral. Caitlin Flanagan on ice for Valtire. Caitlin gets it stimped in the corner. 30 seconds in the 3-on-3. Shifting around as Toronto's shot is going to be blocked by Grund, picked up by Dobbs. Martin now with a two-on-one, shifting it ahead to Flanagan. Flanagan going into the zone, taken down to the ice. Deflected by Martin. Martin coming free. Martin now chipping it ahead. Martin up against the back wall. Picked up by Dobbs. Dobbs down in the corner. And that's going to be the end of the overtime period. We'll see what we do here.